Hello, I'm BJ Jarvis from the University of Florida Citrus County Cooperative Extension Office, and today I wanted to share some information about composting with worms. Many people, including me, have not always had the best success with traditional composting. It's messy, it's big, it takes a long time. So what else can we do? Well, one of the things I found a few years ago was composting with worms. They're really quick, so you see a real quick turnaround time on decomposing all those things that go in, and they also provide some great benefits to the garden. So let's talk about the worm composting unit that we have here at the demonstration garden behind our office in Lecanto. So let's come over here and take a look at it. This is a simple unit that is available commercially. There's a lot of different types on the market. Some have legs on it like this one, others don't. Doesn't really matter as long as you've got a hopper for the worms to live in and a place for all the material to go after that. And I'll show you why that's important in just a second. So let's get inside. So inside our composting unit, you see a lot of newspaper. The newspaper is there to keep it moist. Worms have no ability to rehydrate their body, and if they dry out, bad news. So we keep some moist newspaper on top, and they will actually eat it. So when you look at this newspaper, you can see that it is it's just strips of newspaper, including some colored newspaper. Used to be newspaper that was colored was toxic to certain things, but today it's all food grade. So you don't have to worry about taking the comics out or advertisements. That can all go inside, and the worms will actually eat that too. So let's see if we can find some worms in here doing some decomposing for us. Okay, so this is there's some worms that I found on this dead avocado. They are doing a really good job of decomposing this material, and they will quickly turn it into something that is really great in the garden, and I'll show that in a minute. Sometimes when you're putting things into the compost pile, you'll find that seeds will sprout. This is especially true with melons. If you eat cantaloupe in the summertime and you put the insides in here, don't be surprised if the next time you open it up you have this beautiful crop of cantaloupe seeds. So you can either pull them out and plant them, or you can just knock them down and put them back under, and the worms will compost those too. So really nothing too fancy here. It's just a place that's a few inches deep to hold the worms. This is a special kind of worm composting worm. There's basically two kinds of worms. One worm is those great big old fat red wigglers that we put on our fishing hook. They like to live very deep in the soil, 12 inches, 18 inches down. Where these are little skinny guys, you can see from here just how tiny these are, and this is a full-grown worm. So it's very small, but it is fantastic at decomposing material. So I'm going to close this back up because other decomposers like to get in here too. All right, so I'm going to close that back up and show you what goes in here and what doesn't. A lot of times when I mention composting with worms to people, they say, oh, I don't really want to do that because it's going to stink. I'm afraid it's going to smell or attract animals like maybe your neighbor's dog or other kinds of critters. If you put the right kind of stuff into a compost pile, it's not going to have a smell at all. It's going to have essentially no smell or just an earthy smell. So let's talk. So instead of telling you the things that you can put in, because that list is really, really long, let me tell you there's only 3 things that you can't put in there: meat, dairy, and oil. So if you follow that rule, your compost worm unit is not going to smell. So what does go in? I'll give you some examples from my own house and the office. So this morning we brewed a batch of coffee, and so these are the grounds from that. They're slightly acidic, but it's already very, very decomposed, and so the worms love that. That's like a really quick meal to them, and they will actually even eat the little filter if your coffee maker still has a filter. There's some things that end up at my house getting stuck in the back of the fridge, like these poor carrots, should have been cooked but weren't. This pepper that is decomposing, even this ear of corn. So things happen in the house, and so these things will all get eaten. Obviously things like this that's about to turn to mush is going to be decomposed by the worms very, very quickly. Something really hard and firm like this corn cob or the carrots is going to take longer. So you will see that things last lesser amounts of time. Now the one thing that I often get questions about after can I put coffee grounds into my composting is, can I put in eggshells? And the answer is yes. The worms actually need a little bit of grit in their body, and so the eggshells, not only do they provide a little bit of calcium, but it provides that little bit of grit for that food to be working against in its body. What I like to do is save them for a few hours after I crack the shells and then just crush them up, and that helps the worms get a hold of it a little better. And those small pieces really make it much easier for them to take advantage of them. So all that can go into your compost bin. Keep it covered with a few layers of moist newspaper. You know, every week or so, I'll just wet a couple of pieces of newspaper. Don't use a whole section, you know, 15, 20 pages. You know, just a couple of pages at a time is plenty. You can either strip the paper, or you can just use a couple of pieces at a time. So that just kind of keeps them moist. And the other thing that it does is it keeps other decomposers out. Occasionally you may open up a compost unit and you will find that there is maybe a roach in there or some other little critters. They're all decomposers, so you know, you may not want them in there, but they're not going to hurt anything. The only critter in there that's going to really be a problem to your worms is if you somehow get ants in there. Ants will actually be very harmful to the worms, so that's a problem. Okay, so we've talked about how to start your unit, the great stuff that you can put into the unit. So why do we do it? Well, there's actually 3 reasons that I like to think about when I'm composting with worms. One is I don't want to put anything in the landfill that I don't have to. So this is a great way to keep more stuff out of the landfill, and also to keep nutrients right here in my garden, because the worms do some great things for us and provide us 2 things. One is this pitcher that it looks like coffee or tea, and we actually call it compost tea. It is the liquid, so if you put very wet stuff in there like watermelon, it's going to produce a lot of liquid. This has got nutrients in it, as well as these things called castings. So this is the more solid stuff. Both of these have got some nutrients in it, improve our soils. So if you've gotten excited about worms, composting with worms, like I'm excited about composting with worms, and you want more information, give me a call at the Extension office or stop by and see me. My number is 352-527-5700.